The casualty report materialized on Commander Kale Thas's terminal at 0447 station time, and he stopped breathing. 3 human cubs, all confirmed dead in Sector 7. Lost during the perimeter defense when the Vex-Thule assault wave overwhelmed the eastern bunker complex. The message was clinical, efficient, and catastrophic. Humanity's entire first-generation born-off world, according to YouTube analytics, 99.3% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Was now categorized as KIA. Kyle Thas's mandibles tightened. He read the names again, hoping the data would rearrange itself into something survivable. Emma Johnson, age 8.3 years. Michael Rodriguez, age 7.9 years. Sophia Williams, age 8.7 years. 3 names, 3 futures, 3 irreplaceable links in humanity's desperate chain of survival. Status report, he commanded, his voice steady despite the cascade of chemical panic flooding his neural pathways. The command center fell silent. Everyone was already staring at the same impossible numbers on their displays. Sector 7 remains pacified, sir. His tactical officer, Vexia, responded carefully. She was a Vex-Thule caste strategist, and she understood what this meant. The bunker explosion registered at 8.4 magnitude. Nothing biological could have survived within 200 meters of the impact zone. The cubs were in the protected containment during the blast, direct strike on the roof. Medical assessment indicates instantaneous casualty. Instantaneous. Clinical. Done. The orbital displays painted their nightmare in real time. The Vex-Thule armada descended through the upper atmosphere in perfect formation. 17 massive dreadnoughts with another 93 support vessels in coordinated attack vectors. They would reach ground strike position in 14 minutes. The settlement had 42,000 civilians huddled in the lower bunkers. Most were alien species who'd signed trade agreements with humanity. The humans themselves numbered barely 300. Traders, researchers, a handful of military personnel, and now, apparently, 0 juveniles. The genetic line was extinct. That's what the reports would say. That's what High Command would accept. Kyle Thas felt something break in his strategic protocols. "Get me Sarah Jackson," he said quietly. "Sir?" Vexia looked up. "The human guardian is in Sector 7. She was accompanying the cubs during—" "I know where she was," Kyle Thas interrupted. "Get her on comms, now." The seconds stretched. The armada descended another 1,000 meters. The command center hummed with the artificial calm of military discipline collapsing under impossible weight. Kyle Thas had coordinated defenses across 7 contested worlds. He understood loss. He understood tactical sacrifice. But this wasn't tactical. This was extinction. The comms crackled. "Jackson here." Her voice came through rough, breathless, overlapping with klaxon alarms in the background. "Sir, we've got secondary explosions in the eastern sector. Structural integrity is failing and—" "The cubs?" Kyle Thas asked. He needed to hear it confirmed by her. Perhaps there was data corruption. Perhaps— "Gone, sir." Sarah's voice didn't break. It just flattened. Direct strike. I was pulling them toward the reinforced section when the blast came through the roof. They were right there, and then she stopped. In the background, the settlement was collapsing around her. "They're gone." The finality of it struck like a physical force. "Evacuation Protocol Omega," Kyle Thas commanded. "All personnel to the lower bunkers. We're surrendering sectors 5 through 7. "That's a retreat," Vexia protested. The Vex Thule will consolidate their position. We don't have a choice, Kyle Toss said. We have civilians and no genetic future. Pull back, regroup, hold the settlement core. Sarah was still on the line. Sir, I'm going to start organizing evacuation from the eastern exits. I can... Stay alive, Kael'thas said. That was all he could give her now. Get yourself to the lower bunkers. Copy that. The line went silent. The Armada was now within 800 meters of the settlement. The defense grid powered up, automated weapon systems firing on predetermined tracks. 3 dreadnoughts lit up under the volley. The Vex Thule returned fire. The eastern sector of the settlement exploded. Kael'thas watched Sector 7 vanish on the tactical display. Buildings collapsing, infrastructure failing. The designated zone for human juveniles now rendered into smoking rubble. 3 children had been humanity's entire claim on a future in this system. 3 children, and now they were statistics in a casualty report. The human genetic line, extinct before it truly lived. Kael'thas straightened in his command chair and began running the calculations for surrender negotiations. There would be terms, there would be humiliation, and there would be no human cubs to carry forward the species' memory of that humiliation. Just as he was about to transmit the evacuation order, a sensor alert pinged on the eastern perimeter. Organic movement in Sector 7, in the dead zone. Sir. Vexia's voice was uncertain. That's not possible. There's a biosignature moving through the radiation-saturated sector. Multiple organisms. Small mass readings consistent with... Clear the alert, Kael'thas said flatly. Sensor malfunction. But sir, the readings are increasing, moving toward the settlement core. And there's something larger. Large bipedal organism, approximately human mass parameters. The signal strength suggests it's definitely alive and... Confirm, Kael'thas said. He stood from his chair. Confirm that biosignature is human. The command center fell silent. 3 biosignatures, small, moving together. 1 larger organism, carrying them, moving toward home. Confirm that reading, Kael'thas said, his voice cutting through the command center static like sharpened crystal. Full spectrum analysis on those signatures. I want radiation levels, movement vectors, and biological composition. Vexia's antennae trembled as she worked the data streams. Sir, the sensors are showing inconsistent readings. The background radiation in Sector 7 should render any organic matter inert within minutes. Yet these biosignatures are active, mobile, and... She paused, her optical clusters flickering with confusion. They're accelerating, heading directly toward Gate 3. Equipment malfunction, someone said from the back of the command center. Must be signal ghost from the earlier ordnance detonation. Multiple independent sensors, another tech officer countered. All confirming the same signatures. It's not... The visual feed came online. A figure emerged from the scorched wasteland like something pulled from nightmare logic. The entire eastern sector was a hellscape. Buildings reduced to skeletal frames, ground still radiating orange hot. The very air warped and dancing with thermal distortion. Nothing should move through that sector. Nothing biological could move through that sector. Sarah Jackson was moving through it. She was charred, her combat fatigues blackened and torn, her skin covered in ash so thick it looked like a second layer. Her movements were steady despite the obvious exhaustion pulling at every muscle. But what made the command center go silent? What made tactical officers stop mid-breath was what she was carrying. Wrapped in the human settlement flag, red, white, and blue fabric that should have been incinerated in the blast, were 3 small shapes, The flag was held against her body like a sacred vessel. And even through the thermal haze and distance, even through the distortion of the radiation-saturated air, the biosensors confirmed what her physical form was communicating. The shapes were moving. "No," Vexia whispered. "Impossible," someone else said. Kailta stepped closer to the visual display. Sarah was limping now, her pace slowing as she approached the outer perimeter gate. The flag wrapped around her cargo was distinctive. He'd seen it before, in human historical database files. The same flag flew above the settlement command center, the symbol of humanity's claim on this world, now being used as a burial shroud for 3 children who absolutely, positively, according to every protocol and sensor reading, should not be alive. "Get medical teams to Gate 3, Kael'thas commanded. Full emergency response. "Sir, the casualty report," Vexia started. "Is apparently wrong," Kael'thas said. "Move." He opened a direct line to High Command. The transmission delay was only 2.3 seconds, but it felt like geological time. General Sylar's face materialized on the secure channel, mandibles tensed with the weight of losing an entire settlement's future. "General," Kael'thas began, and then he stopped. "How do you say the impossible? How do you phrase data that violates every known parameter of human biological survival?" "Sir, we're getting biological. Readings from Sector 7. Multiple biosignatures. They're moving toward the settlement core." "Confirm the casualty count," Sylar said immediately. "All cubs confirmed dead." The words felt like they were being pulled from Kael'thas's own throat. "I'm reading 3 juvenile biosignatures active and mobile in Sector 7, sir. They're being..." He watched Sarah stumble slightly, then correct her course, pushing forward despite every indicator that her body should have failed 5 minutes ago. "They're being carried by an adult human female. She's moving toward Gate 3. Visual confirmation incoming. There's a human female. She's carrying... Sir, she's carrying 3 cubs. They're moving. They're alive." The line went silent for a full second. In High Command, thousands of kilometers above the surface, strategic officers and genetic preservation specialists were staring at the same impossible data. "That violates fundamental biological parameters," Sylar said finally. "Human genome cannot withstand lethal radiation saturation." "Acknowledged, sir," Kael'thas said. "And yet..." Sarah reached Gate 3. The medical teams were already there, emergency personnel moving with practiced urgency. She didn't wait for them to approach. She walked directly to the nearest medic, Dr. Vexia's cousin, a Cynthian with 8 appendages, and carefully, reverently, extended the flag-wrapped bundle. The medic's optical sensors activated, scanning the contents. 3 small human children. Emma Johnson, Michael Rodriguez, Sophia Williams, all showing vital signs, all alive. "Get them to the medical bay," Sarah said, her voice hoarse and cracked from radiation exposure. She swayed slightly, and someone caught her elbow. She waved them off, but didn't move away. Do not file them as casualties. They're not acceptable losses. They're not anything except alive, and they're staying that way." In the command center, the silence had become total. "Sir?" Vexia's voice was barely audible. "What are our protocols for surviving something we determined was unsurvivable?" Kael'thas watched Sarah collapse to one knee, the medic team surrounding her with emergency response equipment, while the 3 cubs, wrapped in the human flag like honor itself, were being rushed toward the medical facility. He didn't have an answer. The medical bay's diagnostic systems had been running continuous scans on Sarah Jackson for 11 minutes, and Dr. Vexia was approaching a philosophical crisis. Your cellular markers show severe radiation exposure, Vexia said, her voice carrying the particular strain of a scientist encountering data that rejected fundamental physics. The Cynthian doctor's 8 appendages hovered over the holographic display of Sarah's cellular composition, each one trembling slightly. The dosage you absorbed should have initiated cascade cellular failure within hours. Your genetic structure should be unraveling. Your immune system should have collapsed. You should be dead. Sarah lay on the medical platform, wrapped in emergency thermal blankets, her breathing shallow but steady. Her skin was mottled with radiation burns, her hair had singed away in places, and her left arm bore the distinctive darkening of acute radiation poisoning that should have progressed to systemic failure. She should not be conscious. She should not be speaking. She should not be alive. Yeah, notice that, Sarah said, her voice rough as gravel but carrying an undertone of dark humor. Figured if I couldn't fight it, I'd shelter in place until it cycled. The cubs were in the shielded cargo crate, the emergency container, you know? The one in the administrative bunker. I grabbed it when the blast came through. Got the kids in, sealed it up, and basically just waited. Waited, Vexia repeated. In lethal conditions. In lethal conditions, yeah, Sarah confirmed. But the crate was rated for chemical spill containment. Radiation doesn't work the same way. It cycles. It decreases. You just have to not die until it does. She coughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. I made sure the cub's compartment was fully sealed. They were safe. I stayed in the outer chamber to monitor the readings on the crate's diagnostic panel. When the radiation markers dropped below critical threshold, I grabbed them and walked out. In the command center, 17 floors above the medical bay, Commander Kale Thas stood motionless while Vexia transmitted the medical data to his terminal. The numbers were impossible. They were also undeniable. Sarah's cellular regeneration rate was elevated, not degraded. Her immune system wasn't collapsed, it was adapting. Her genetic markers showed stress, certainly, but they also showed something that military medical science had never documented in a human exposed to that level of radiation. Active recovery. You panicked. Sarah's voice came through the medical bay speakers, transmitted to the command center speakers simultaneously. You pulled back. You assumed we were done. You ran the protocols and decided we were acceptable losses. Kael'thas watched the transcript scroll across his screen. He should have felt anger. Instead, he felt something like recognition of a fundamental truth he'd never understood about humans. We assumed we weren't, Sarah continued. That's the difference. In the medical bay, Dr. Vexia was moving through her own paradigm collapse with characteristic Cynthian precision. She began running comparative analysis on the 3 cubs' genetic markers. The children showed trace radiation exposure, enough that any standard protocol would have flagged them for containment and observation. But they showed no cellular degradation, no immune compromise, no signs of the radiation poisoning that should have killed them in the womb if their genetic structure was as fragile as all xenobiological records suggested. The cubs, Vexia said slowly, show adaptive markers. Their cells they're reacting to the radiation exposure by adjusting their repair mechanisms. This isn't survival through shielding. This is survival through biological adjustment. They're human, Sarah said simply. Humans adapt. It's what we do. We don't run the numbers and accept the predetermined outcome. We find the variables in the equation and we change them. Kael'thas opened a priority channel to High Command. General Zelar appeared on his screen with 3 senior strategic officers flanking him. all of them staring at the same impossible medical data. "Sir," Kael'thas began, and this time the words came with terrible clarity. "We have been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of human biological parameters. Our protocols assume humans operate within predictable survival thresholds. The data suggests they don't." "Explain," Zelar commanded. "Human survival strategy is not resistance," Kael'thas said, watching the medical scans stream across his display, watching Sarah's impossible cellular adaptation unfold in real time. "It's adaptation. They don't fight lethal conditions. They recalibrate around them. They refuse to accept the predetermined outcome and instead find pathways through the variables we assumed were constants." One of the officers, a Vex Thul strategist, made a sound that might have been distress. "That means our casualty predictions are based on faulty models. Our tactical retreats may have been unnecessarily premature. Our entire strategic doctrine regarding human survival is wrong." Zelar finished quietly. In the medical bay, Sarah had closed her eyes. The cubs were in isolation chambers now, running through their own diagnostic protocols, but preliminary scans showed they would recover fully. Emma Johnson was already showing signs of consciousness. Michael Rodriguez's vital signs were stabilizing with remarkable speed. Sophia Williams was breathing on her own, without mechanical assistance. 3 children who should have been statistics. 3 children who, through their guardians' refusal to accept extinction, had instead become the proof that humanity operated on principles entirely alien to the civilizations that had tried to understand them. "Dr. Vexia," Kael'thas said through the comms, his voice steady despite the cascade of implications unfolding in his mind. "What are Sarah Jackson's medical projections for full recovery?" The Cynthian doctor studied her displays, recalibrating her expectations around this new understanding of human biology. "Full recovery," she said finally. "Estimated timeline, 72 hours. She's already healing. The adaptation is accelerating." Kael'thas closed his eyes. Humanity didn't just survive the unsurvivable. Humanity learned from it. The military debrief took place in Conference Room 7, 20 hours after Sarah had walked out of the dead zone. High Command had requisitioned the space via secure transmission, and the holographic representation of General Zylar now dominated the center of the table, flanked by tactical strategists, xenobiologists, and senior military advisors from 4 different species. Sarah sat at the far end of the table, still wearing medical-grade bandages under her fresh fatigues. The cubs were in the settlement's education center, recovering under observation. They would be fine. Better than fine, actually. Their adaptive markers had impressed every medical specialist who'd reviewed their case files. "Let's establish the operational parameters," Zelar began, his mandibles clicking through the words with the precision of a species used to absolute certainty. Sarah Jackson sheltered in place during lethal radiation conditions rather than executing tactical retreat protocol. This decision was based on not getting my kids killed, Sarah said flatly. "That's the parameter. I wasn't running protocols. I was keeping 3 humans alive." A pause rippled through the conference room. "Precisely," one of the xenobiologists said, her optical clusters brightening with recognition. "Human survival strategy is not algorithmic. It's motivational. The cub's biological connection to Sarah Jackson created a survival imperative that overrode conventional risk assessment. She refused to accept the predetermined outcome," another strategist added, pulling up the comparative casualty models from the initial retreat scenario. "According to every model we ran, the cubs should have died in the blast. Sarah should have died in the radiation. Yet both variables produced entirely different results by rejecting the model itself." Kailthas leaned forward. General, this fundamentally changes how we integrate human assets into our defensive strategy. Agreed, Zeeler said. New protocol. Human guardians are classified as unpredictable tactical variables. They operate outside conventional risk parameters when protecting younger humans. This makes them simultaneously unreliable and invaluable. Unreliable how? Sarah asked. You cannot be predicted, a Vexthul officer said, not unkindly. You will not follow optimal retreat vectors if it means abandoning your young. You will shelter in lethal conditions. You will find solutions that violate established safety parameters. From a pure military doctrine standpoint, you are chaotic. From a pure military doctrine standpoint, Sarah countered, I have 3 kids who are alive and adaptive. Your doctrine had them filed under acceptable losses before we even started. So maybe your doctrine is the problem. The statement hung in the air like a weapon. General Gilar made a sound that might have been appreciation. This is why humanity will be invaluable in the coming conflicts, he said. You do not accept the mathematics of extinction. You rewrite the equation. More than that, a strategic advisor said, pulling up the medical data one more time. The cubs are showing accelerated adaptive markers. They're not just surviving radiation exposure. They're developing improved cellular regeneration as a result of exposure. Humanity doesn't just endure lethal conditions. Humanity evolves through them. Sarah wrapped the flag around her shoulders. The same flag she'd used to protect the cubs, now cleaned and restored to her by the medical team. The fabric was still stained from the radiation exposure, still marked by what she'd carried it through. But it was whole. So, what does this mean operationally? She asked. It means, Kailthas said carefully, we are revising our defensive strategy to account for human factors that cannot be predicted or contained. It means when human guardians are present, we calculate protection around them rather than around them. It means the cub's survival becomes our evidence that humanity does not file its young under acceptable losses, because humanity does not accept unacceptable outcomes. In other words, Sarah said, a ghost of dark humor crossing her face, you're finally catching up to how we actually work. Alien military runs on flowcharts. Humans run on spite and coffee and the absolute refusal to let our kids become statistics. She stood, wrapping the flag more carefully around her shoulders. The gesture was simple, but it transformed the fabric from medical evidence into symbol. Protection, honor, defiance, triumph. Now, if we're done with the philosophical crisis, Sarah continued, I need damage assessments on the eastern sector, medical supply manifests for the cub's recovery, and defensive position analysis for the next 24 hours. Because spite and coffee only get you so far without logistics. The command center fell silent for a moment. Then General Gilar laughed, a sound like distant thunder, and began transmitting new operational parameters across the network. Humanity had just rewritten the rules. 3 weeks after the Dead Zone incident, the settlement's eastern sector was half rebuilt. Prefabricated structures rose alongside temporary shelters, and the automated construction drones worked in careful coordination with human manual labor crews. Sarah was elbow-deep in reinforcement materials when Kailthas found her. New protocol arrived from High Command, the commander said, extending a data slate. Rule 1. Never assume human mission parameters remain static. Rule 2. Human guardians demonstrate unpredictable resilience patterns when protecting offspring. Adjust all tactical calculations accordingly. Sarah didn't look up from the structural supports she was organizing. took them long enough to figure that out. Across the settlement, Emma, Michael, and Sophia played in the reconstructed courtyard under observation by rotating Cynthian medical specialists. The cubs had become something unexpected. Proof. Proof that humanity protected its future regardless of cost, that human adaptability operated on principles no other species fully understood, that when you cornered humans with something to protect, you didn't get surrender, you got innovation. How did you know they'd survive? Someone asked Sarah during a supply inventory shift. One of the newer alien attaché officers, genuinely curious. I didn't, Sarah said simply, checking off manifest items with practiced efficiency. But I knew giving up meant they didn't. Simple math. By the first month, diplomatic channels were flooded. The Vex Thul, the very species attempting to destroy the settlement, sent a message through intermediary channels. Do not corner humans who have something to protect. They will find ways. It wasn't a threat. It was a classification update, a new category of unpredictability in the cosmic calculus of war. The flag, stained with radiation, marked with survival, was being preserved in the settlement's archive chamber. Historians from 7 different species were already drafting documentation. The event had been designated Human Guardian Protocol, a case study in how conventional military doctrine collapsed when humans decided the outcome was unacceptable. That night, Sarah sat with the cubs in the rebuilt residential sector. Emma was already half asleep, nestled against her shoulder. Michael was asking questions about radiation patterns. Sophia was wrapped in the flag, the same flag that had carried all 3 through the dead zone. Why did you save us? Michael asked. Because you're mine to protect, Sarah said simply. That's what Guardians do. She wrapped the flag more carefully around Sophia, then Emma, then Michael. 3 small humans bundled in the colors of their species, in the physical manifestation of refusal to accept extinction. The settlement lights glowed across the reconstructed landscape. Beyond them, alien vessels orbited in carefully recalculated defensive positions. Command structures had been rewritten. Protocols had been shattered. The Vex Thul Empire had learned that some things could not be predicted by mathematics or strategic doctrine. Sarah began humming. An old human lullaby, something her own mother had sung to her decades ago, on a world far enough away that it barely mattered anymore. The melody was simple, ancient, carrying the weight of human survival across millennia. The cubs drifted into sleep under humanity's flag. Outside the window, the alien stars burned cold and distant. But inside this small room, wrapped in fabric and song, 3 humans and their guardian existed in a space that no cosmic power could calculate or contain. The settlement lights reflected off the flag's fabric. In the darkness beyond the walls, historians and strategists and military commanders continued to debate what had happened in the dead zone. But here, in this moment, it was simple. Humanity did not accept extinction. Humanity protected its young. Humanity survived. And no algorithm in any known civilization could change that.